Hello world! I want to talk a little bit about safety. For a do-it-yourself aquaponics setup, it's not uncommon to recycle used containers. Now, it's really important to understand what material was in the container, how to safely handle it, and what effects it could have on your aquaponics system. I'm recycling IBC totes for my setup that previously held fertilizers. So the first step is we check the label. Most fertilizer has an NPK value right here. That's NPK. So nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And you can see this specific fertilizer has 5% nitrogen, 0% phosphorus, and 15% potassium. When you handle any chemical, you should always look up and review its MSDS. So to find its MSDS, we need a few pieces of information. We need the company's name, we need the names that the material is commercially sold by, and we'll probably need this NPK value. And so on their company website, they have resources and the MSDS label info. That brings up all of their different MSDS sheets for their different products. And the specific one we're interested in is the K-Leaf 5015. So this document contains all of the safety considerations, the proper ways to handle it, what to do in case of accidental exposure, how to neutralize the chemical, and how to properly dispose of the chemical. Off the bat, we can see that it causes mild skin irritation and eye irritation, so it's slightly hazardous to touch it or to get it in your eyes. As we continue on, we can see the first aid measures. These are important to review just in case something happens, you know what the safe and proper procedure is to minimize the harm of an accident. As we continue on, we can see that this is a non-combustible liquid, so we're not too concerned about fire hazards. So now we have the precautions for safe handling, exposure controls. Because we're building a food system, we need to make sure that either all of the material is removed or all of the material is consumed by the plants and the fish. So luckily, since this is a fertilizer, plants will eat this up. Now, when I run my aquaponics system, I'm going to rinse out the tanks multiple times in order to try and remove all of the residue material. I don't have a whole lot of material in it because all the material has already been used as fertilizer. Now, it's important that I make sure and chemically test the water that the potassium and the nitrogen levels are not toxic before I introduce fish. If you already have an aquaponics system and you're looking at recycling tanks to build out capacity, you might want to set up a system on its own so you can have the plants filter out the fertilizer. I wouldn't recommend using any sort of chemical that is not intended as a fertilizer in your aquaponics system, especially if it has health considerations. I think that the plants will consume most of the residual material that's left over after I do a good rinse or two. Regardless, always be safe and always look up for the safety data sheet of any material that you don't know how to handle, and specifically make sure you review the first aid measures before you touch or get near or handle any sort of material that you don't know about. If you want to follow along on this aquaponics project, feel free to subscribe and thanks for tuning in.